So we'd come up into the hairpin and then set it around between 30 and 40 Ks, like so. The whole pro scene really just revolved around this one sort of meta or mechanic. Hi guys, Kevin Ellis Jr here with Apex Racing Team, and today we're going to be looking at the new updates from iRacing that have just come out in the recent Season 3 patch. Obviously one of the big ones that a lot of people have been talking about recently has been the updates to the tyre model and fixing the brake dragging, which has obviously been a large part of what we do for the last sort of 18 months. It's an exploit as such, or sort of manipulating how the tyre behaves under certain circumstances. So at the start, you know, we would hold full throttle, hold the brake so that we could keep the car somewhere between 30 and 40 kph, and it would essentially condition the tyre. You know, iRacing brought out the scrutiny system to try and obviously prevent us driving too slowly and stuff like that, but then of course we found other ways around that, and it went from just sort of dragging the brake out on the pit exit to doing 3 full out laps, and we locate the best corners to get around the scrutiny system and sort of avoid getting pinged by the black flag and getting pinged by the system. It basically just produced a massive boost in performance, a large change in grip as well. Obviously at a pro level where the full field can be split by, you know, maybe 6-7 tenths, obviously it's a necessity that we have to do it. So again, we're going to go through that today, and I'll kind of show you guys what we used to do, how we done it, and see how the tyre reacts now. Right guys, so we're in the sim now, and we're going to take a quick look at you know, how brake dragging is going to react now. So what I've done here is we've loaded up Red Bull Ring. This was one of the sort of middle rounds in PESC. We've got our VRS telemetry, which you can see here. We had to utilise AI sessions, as that produced accurate scrutiny as if it was in the session, so we could position in time when the black flags would come out and learn how to sort of exploit that as best as possible. So we've got a 28.655. I think round here it was roughly a second that we were gaining compared to race times, or even just the qualifying set without brake dragging. So what we used to do was sort of, as I say, we'd do a lot of practice to get used to where the black flags would trigger and some of the more lenient areas. So we'd also sort of figure out like our maximum speed to drive at, because we want to try and keep the tyre pressures nice and low, because obviously in iRacing, the lower the tyre pressure, generally the more grip you have. So around here I think we were roughly 190 Ks, so we'd sort of hover around 190 on the straights, and then as we come up into one of the first hairpins, a lot slower corners were typically a lot better to do this as well. So we'd come up into the hairpin and then set it around between 30 and 40 Ks, like so. Obviously you can see we're not quite doing full throttle. It did kind of evolve as the season went on. We did find that the more lock you would use, it would put a bit more load through the tyre, and therefore would give you just a little bit more grip. Now if you tried to do it at every single corner back to back, the scrutiny would pick you up and give you a furrow black flag, so we would try and space the drags out as best we could. So for example here we're going to avoid turn 5, but then at turn 6 here we will then brake drag again. And this was basically, every single driver in the field was basically doing the same thing. iRacing would release the full race replay, so we had access to, everyone had access to everyone's qualifying runs, so if we were missing something one week, we could go in and watch the replay, see what the quickest guys were doing, and then learn from that. And what that resulted in was the entire field being insanely close, and everyone basically being on the same strategy. So obviously you can hear the spotter calling green flag, but for us, we're going to ignore that and continue our brake drags. So here it was turn 1, turn 3, turn 4, turn 6, and the final corner was where we found that we could get the most amount of drags in without getting pinged by the scrutiny. Alright, so now we're on our final brake drag lap. We've done two and a half full out laps, and then as we come around here, one thing that we realised is that you want to do one massive brake drag right at the end. So here you can see we're going to avoid the turn 6 brake drag until we get onto the straight, at which point we then slow it down on a straight, which the scrutiny is more strict on a straight, but this is still okay because we needed the space to do it. Then what we do is weave from left back to the right. There's a third weave, fourth weave, we get the furrow black flag, so that resets the timer. We know we can get another 2 weaves out of it before you get the disqualified flag. Push down at the keyboard to quickly move the bias to where we need it, and then set up for the lap. So at this point, just need to take a deep breath during the qualifying sessions, trying to stay as relaxed as possible and just keep the tyre in as good a window as possible. So straight away, you can already feel, compared to how it used to be, the grip just isn't there. Like as you sort of brake and turn in on brake drag tyres, the car would just sort of go in. Whereas with this, it does feel a lot lazier. And even like in terms of traction as well, you can definitely even hear it in the tyres if you've got the tyre sounds up high enough. You can hear the tyre just scrubbing a little bit, whereas with brake drag it would just go. It really did feel like you were driving a GT3 compared to a sort of Porsche Cup car. So then as we bring it in towards turn 5, we need to be really careful around this part of the lap here, because obviously we haven't got the grip to really lean into it. Into 6. Rear end's really starting to go now as the tyres are beginning to overheat just with the lack of grip. And then into the last 2 corners. Big commitment corners. Out the final corner, obviously I'm a little bit rusty, so I'm not going to be right up to pace, but you can see here that's a 29.9, so that is 1.3 seconds off. There's maybe 3-4 tenths of my driving, but even still that's still going to leave us a second short of where we were. Alright guys, so now as a direct comparison we're going to do the same thing just without the brake drags. We're going to do sort of 3 pushing out laps and then do an actual full push lap. As I said, last season the difference between those kind of lap times would be literally a second. So even if we're sort of around the within a couple tenths, then we can say with confidence that the tyre's fixed. It's probably more me being a little bit inconsistent. But you can see obviously I've got the delt on the bottom left hand corner from the brake drag run, 29.9 that we've just done. And this is going to give us a bit of a comparison, so we can see exactly if we're losing in a straight line or losing in the corners at all, or if it is pretty stable or pretty comparable. Now, of course, one big misconception with brake dragging was that it was all temperature related, and we generated brake temp, and that sort of went through the wheel rim and into the carcass, the temperature. But if you actually looked into the telemetry, you generate more brake temp slowing down to do the brake drag than you actually would during the brake drag, and the tyre temps were completely identical to just driving normally. There was no extra heat sort of generated from brake dragging. The lap time just sort of happened. So then into the second last corner, and then we're going to drop down the hill to start a hot lap. So we'll set this up just a little bit, drop it down the hill, get the white flag, onto our hot lap. We go. In towards turn 1, same as what I've done on the brake drag lap, and straight away you can see we're already a tenth up on what we've done on the brake drag lap. And again, that wasn't a perfect turn 1. Up the hill, through what is named turn 2, and then into turn 3. Again, grip feels pretty much identical, and again we're 400s up. Before, it would be the opposite way, but a lot more. We'd probably be 3 or 4 tenths down by this stage in the lap. Whereas now we're obviously up, and That's what we like to see. Turn 5 on the way in. Still feels pretty comparable to what I did on the brake drags. Grip feels pretty similar. Drop it into turn 6, use a little bit inside curb for rotation. Watch for the off tracks on the exit. See, we're 200s down, but I'm willing to admit that was more driver than tyre performance. And then into the final 2 corners. Car grips in quite nicely. Drop it into the final corner. Use the curb to rotate the car. Watch for the off track on the exit. There you can see we've crossed the line. We've gone from a 29.9 to a 29.7. Again, still 1.1 seconds off what we've done in prep for Pesk, and that 1 second is pretty much all from the brake drag. So, as I say, fair play to iRacing. It took a while for the fix to come, but it's here, and you know, we can finally start driving again and not really dragging the brakes on the outlap. You know, testing for it was really frustrating, trying to work to an invisible limit. You snag the front just a little bit, and you know, you would get a black flag, and especially at tracks like Spa, where we were getting 12 minutes for qualifying. We had 3-minute outlaps, 3-minute plus outlaps at Spa, with, you know, having to stop 6-7 times a lap to brake drag. We were using up 11.5 of the 12 minutes allocated to really maximise the performance, and that's how far us pro teams really took it. You know, we were getting to the stage where if you brake dragged half a second too long, you would get pinged by a black flag. So we were just constantly going out there and trying to find, you know, how long to brake drag in each corner, what corners were the best to do it, how to space them out evenly so that the scrutiny timer didn't pick you up for it, and also trying to manage what speeds to do on the straights. You know, some tracks would do 170, some tracks you want to do 200, and other tracks you want to be somewhere in between. So, you know, the whole pro scene really just revolved around this one sort of meta or mechanic. So that the fact that this is gone now, and we can really start, you know, working on setup again and really trying to maximise ourselves as drivers rather than trying to maximise the exploits in the scrutiny system and stuff like that. It's obviously really positive for us. Really excited to keep on trying to improve as drivers, keep on pushing the sim to the next level, and keep on improving. Alright guys, so that will do us for our sort of in-depth look at is brake dragging really fixed. Obviously the conclusion that we've come to is it definitely is. You know, if you guys are interested in learning more about this car, then of course you can subscribe to the Apex Racing Academy. I'm the coach for the Porsche 992 and have been for the last couple of years. Really enjoy working on this car. Although setups aren't really too advanced in this thing, this is probably one of the best cars to develop yourself as a driver. It really teaches you all about weight transfer and managing grip and you know, tyre management, small things like that. And you know, if you can be quick in the Porsche Cup and you can have finesse in this kind of car, that will translate to everything else that you drive, especially on the GT side of things. So if you guys are interested in learning more about how to get better in iRacing or get better in the Porsche Cup or any of the cars that we support, then don't forget to head over to apexracingac.com, take a look at what cars we support and see if that tickles your fancy and you want to get involved.